Welcome back to A Corporate Time. We've got Scotty and Rick in here from the Orange County Regional History Center. Rick Kilby, of course, is going to be at the third Thursday, this Thursday coming up. Yeah. And that's a free chance for you to go down to the History Center, check it out.
August 15th, go on down there and check it out.
And Rick's going to be doing a talk at the History Center that you guys can check out. And he's a wealth of knowledge about old Florida. And I'm fascinated to talk to you, Rick. First, thanks for coming in. We appreciate
the
it.
time, man.
It's awesome to be here.
And so your talk is called The Gilded Age Hotels in Florida's Mineral Springs. And you're kind of a springs professional as far as you know all about the history of the springs.
I started freaking out when I was doing research on you this morning because I started screaming to you. You right? I'm screaming at Tom in the other room, and I'm like, I think he's mad too because he can't get into the springs like we can't either. I started screaming that. I'm like, I can't get into the springs anymore. He's mad about it.
So, every week. Rock Springs closes. You see it on social media. Yeah. We're closed even before they open. They're closed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
I can't get into any of the springs. I grew up in DeLand. All the places that I would go for weekends. That's like you would grab your cooler and head there. You can't get in.
No. And I'm sure like you saw it too. We watched it happen, and social media killed them. Because like we
have a really good article about this. I believe in the Gainesville something or other. But there was an article that he did. If you guys want to research, just type his name in there, throw Gainesville in there. You'll find it. Type Springs, because it'll pop up.
We remember a time, even when we first started our business 10 years ago, or about 11 years ago now. We remember when
doable.
King's Landing or Rock Springs and that called the Emerald Isle, Emerald Cut now, or it's basically King's Landing canoe. Like I remember that we talked to the owner, and he's like, well, I need promotion. I need people out here.
He was begging us to get people there. He's like, I want to make this.
Can you guys do commercials and tell people how beautiful the place is? And we're like, this place is it's easy to talk about. And then all of a sudden, I remember when I started seeing the ads on my Facebook feed pop up, and then the videos and the influencers got out there, and now they're booked 2 months in advance.
So really what I'm hearing is you guys are to blame.
No, we didn't even
we never got it off the ground. In fact, that event,
if it was just our listeners,
got canceled. That event ended up getting canceled.
And if it was just our listeners, it'd be great. It's the world now. It's tourists, it's people that come in that are into Disney World. They're like, oh, let's go to see Florida Springs, and it's crazy.
And here's the secret. Here's the secret. You come from out of the country here, and you want to go see Disney World. The secret is the springs are better. You're going to go to the springs, and you're going to be like, holy crap, this is amazing. Yes, you made the right choice. I just don't want you there because I want to go to the springs, too.
Well, you can't get in, so too bad. No one can get in.
I can't.
You know the secret, though. The secret is go in the winter.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But
I went to Silverland Springs in the Ocala National Forest. It was just me and a manatee.
I love it.
I love it. Or on the weekday.
Yeah, you're right. Don't be picky. Get what you get. Go when you can go.
And the water's warm in the winter.
Yeah, because it's all about air temperature.
A lot more positive than I am.
People don't, because the springs are a solid 72 degrees all year long.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Rick, let's get back to it. Let's talk about your journey. How did you become a writer about the Florida Springs, and just tell us how it started.
How long is the show?
We're at the condensed version a little
according
bit.
to Jack, we're not going to be on much longer. No, I'm kidding. He never said that. I didn't even start that rumor. Shouldn't start that rumor.
I think for my journey all started when I went to the Fountain of Youth attraction in St. Augustine.
Yes.
Okay.
Have you guys been there?
Yeah.
Yes.
I went to college at Flagler.
Oh, you did?
It was a place that, I'm big into Florida. One of the reasons why I wanted to go to that school, it's Florida.
Yeah.
It's super Florida there.
Yeah.
And everything looks Florida, and everything's Spanish and clay, and the architecture is ridiculous. And I always thought that the Fountain of Youth was super silly and fun. It's cool.
It's amazing. And it was kind of like a life-changing experience, and I got obsessed with the Fountain of Youth. Anything connected to Ponce de Leon.
Because there are multiple ones, right?
Yes. Yeah. There was one in St. Pete. I mean, any spring that is marketed commercially claims to be the fountain of youth.
I love that. Yeah. That's what makes it cool.
When I went, I was a teenager, and I was like, the water stinks like farts. I was like, sorry.
Anyways.
It does stink like farts.
We're going to pause you for things like that all winter time.
I'm glad you don't have like sound effects.
I tried to tell you.
He took my sound effects away. You see the bull horns over there.
Anyways, I got obsessed with learning springs history, and then I found out a lot of the springs had these big Victorian hotels because people came there to take the waters, which is to bathe in the waters and to drink the water because they believed it had healing purposes.
Like Doc Holliday infamously went
know
to the Florida Springs.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't know about this?
No.
I could be making this up.
My God, nothing would make me happier than if this is total BS.
No, that was Glenwood Springs. I'm sorry.
Oh, you messed it up.
He went to the springs of Colorado, the hot springs.
Yeah.
Because he had tuberculosis.
He got the tuberculosis.
And he thought that there was some sort of healing
he
power.
was living tuberculoso.
Like, once your lungs are bleeding, you're gone.
Yeah. Nothing's going to help. Hot, cold, it doesn't matter. You're the ground.
Sorry.
It's exactly it. That's exactly. A lot of them were consumptives, and they would come from the north. They would take a steamer down to Jacksonville and then get on a steamboat and go up the St. Johns River and stop at these springs. So they had all the facilities for them to bathe. They would soak in the water. They would drink the water. And a lot of them believed it would help the consumption, which is we call today tuberculosis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that?
And we thought the springs were bad now.
Yeah. Imagine you pull off.
Don't
all tuberculosis.
Imagine you row your canoe there. Your wife's in the front with a big old frumpy dress on and a big old hat, and you row up, and then you're like, God, she has so much clothing on. And you're like, why is everybody coughing blood everywhere?
There are blood loogies all over the place.
And I wonder if that would spread it more. Like they're all there bathing in the water and coughing on each other.
Oh, they didn't know science. They're like, well, there's a blood loogie. Let's eat it.
Put it in your pocket.
Rick,
Sorry, Rick.
Well,
so your talk, Rick, the blood.
I'll add the blood loogies.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'll add a slide. Well, so it's funny because I wanted to do research kind of on the origins of this whole practice, so I went to Bath, England, and their baths go back to the Roman times. But they were very popular during the Victorian era.
Yeah.
But supposedly, by the end of the day, all the dead skin and stuff would float to the top that you wouldn't even want to get in the water. It was so disgusting.
God, oh Lord.
Yeah. Luckily, our springs flow out usually.
Yes.
It gets out
You
fast.
have a current.
The blood loogies go right downstream.
There they go.
Yeah. Now it's just bloated baby diapers from the
it's
local.
like an inflated pamper.
Yeah. No, like one of my favorite springs. My trick is I go by boat and then to Blue Springs, and because Blue Springs gets full by I mean,
Kind of use
8
the
a.m.
nose of your vessel to move people out of the way.
Yeah.
So they can get in there.
But people are down there. There's kids. It's packed.
Yeah, no, we've done some damage to our springs, right? Just by wading in them and stomping around on them.
Well, a lot of the growth there, feeds the whole ecosystem. That's what the turtles eat, all that stuff. And if you don't pick up your feet, you stomp it, you're going to kill all that stuff, and it's going to go downstream, and they won't have anything to eat.
Also, there's a big problem with the fertilizer that everybody's using in their grass and like agriculture or whatever. It basically all ends up in our groundwater, and that comes out in our springs. And you could tell, like, the springs used to be a lot more blue back in the day. Now they're a lot green with algae because of the fertilizer, correct?
Great example is Blue Springs, like you talked about. I've never seen a picture of it where the water looks blue. It's always green. It's like lime Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Because there's so much algae because the water's filled with, phosphorus or whatever.
Going back to these regenerative sort of retreats that people would have, would they advertise these like in publications or magazines and be like, what is it just like sort of a microcosm of what ended up, I mean, less like medical, but Disney, like a vacationing spot? Was it like a precursor to that where
yes,
where rich people would just come and be like, well, this is a paradise, sort of like a about what is that show where the rich people are going to these like places to get their heads right? White Lotus or something like.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
like, it's like that, right? Like you're going to like. Well, that's a little different, but
That's yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like it's like was it kind of built like that?
Yeah, so it was kind of the the industrial era. So there's all these there was no EPA, so there's these factories belching smoke into the air. So people who had money wanted to get out away from that, and they believed that being outside was healthier than being inside, which was a novel idea at the time. So they came to Florida in winter. So primarily the season was January through April when it was warmer here than it was up north. And so most of the hotels that I talk about have these big verandas so people can sit outside and not be inside like they would have to be in winter. And, you think about it, they didn't have air conditioning and HEPA filters and all that stuff purifying the air. So if you were in a city, it was very polluted and you wanted to get outside. And Florida was the perfect place to be outside in winter. And that was mostly after the Civil War when people had discovered that, and gone back up north after the war, that Florida was this wonderful place. So you saw all these tourist travel books and things like that about the wonders of Florida.
Any famous people make it here?
Oh, yeah, Harry Beecher Stowe was probably the most famous.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm related to her. I use that in my talk sometimes.
No, really?
Wow.
Yeah, she had a place right on the St. Johns River in a little town called Mandarin, and she was like the rock star of the day. She was like J.K. Rowling or something because of the popularity of Uncle Tom's Cabin. And she, people would stop, the steamboats would stop right at her house to see her there.
Whoa.
Well,
that's nuts, man. Like
it's interesting because it's talking about steamboats and like I just recently took a boat trip up the St. Johns River
he likes
to
to
Lake
brag
George.
To our guests about his boat trips.
But to go to Silver Glen and Salt Springs,
Yeah.
and I stayed at the island. Now it's escaping me. At the top of Lake George.
Oh yeah.
But there's a island there that used to have a resort that rich people used to go to. Then they would, go over to the springs on the other side of it, and that was a huge attraction that the steamboats would come down from Jacksonville down the St. Johns River, and we talked about Florida history, and like Sanford used to be the hub of Central Florida because basically that's
massive.
as far as the boats could go.
Exactly.
And then later on it became Orlando, but it used to be Sanford, and because of the St. Johns River and because it led out to Jacksonville in the ocean.
Yeah. And there was probably hundreds of steamboats at one time on the St. Johns River, and it was the major highway of Florida.
I would have loved to have seen that.
I would love to see
100 steamboats just chugging
It's
right along.
crazy.
That's got to be insane and sound insane.
Yeah.
What? Let's talk a little bit about like price. Do you have any idea at the time what, like, if Tom and I were going to dip our butts in the water and get restored, like what would our cost be?
So on the St. Johns River, the premier place to go was Green Cove Springs. And that was about 30 miles outside of Jacksonville. And it would take you a while to get there on steamboat because they didn't go very fast. But to stay in the very best hotel, which was the Clarendon Hotel, was $4 a night.
All right, for you.
Which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah. It's funny we're like $4. That's not really like you know how money works. Like that was $400 back then, or whatever it was.
Probably more than that.
And so let's talk about some of the springs that we may not know about because that spring I'm not familiar with. Like I've been to a lot of them in Florida, but like in your book, there's so many places that a lot of Floridians haven't even explored yet and don't know about.
Have they all been discovered?
No, actually. So there's a writer who I love who passed away a couple of years ago named Bill Belleville. And what he did was he had a topographical map and he waited till we were in a drought. And he found the low spots because his idea was these swamps normally have water everywhere, but when they dry up, you can see the springs come up. And he discovered 2 in the Seminole State Forest.
I'm guessing, I'm like, somebody's got to have something hid, right?
Exactly.
Some old farmer's got a spring that's
Yeah.
awesome, and he's like, I'm not letting anyone get this
Well,
spring.
there is a spring somewhere in Ocala that scuba divers, like I've done some research, like you have to do a walk to get there or whatever, but it's on this guy's property that he lets scuba divers go.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
And then
yeah.
it's just a hole, a spring hole that people dive, and it's just out there, and it's kind of like you know, people can use it if they want, but it's gonna, you know, like the rules are like, you know, because someone owns it, so it's weird. And then like there are still springs that people actually are on private property and like you own, which is awesome because like even Blue Springs, you know, they have the house. I think it's Thursby House out in Blue Springs. Like someone used to own that whole springs. You know, so imagine like, you know,
and then he donated it, right? Like that happens a lot where you get these families that like. I'll never be cool enough to look at the world and be like, you know what? I donate this huge piece of land for your enjoyment. That's how great I am. I'll never be that good.
Yeah. I'm always impressed. Like,
that's
man,
cool. That's the coolest
you gave it away to us?
They do it in weird places like Colorado. You were just there. Or like I was just in Georgia, and you'll be in like riding down a river, and then there'll be a plaque that's like, this 100 acres in this river I give to Georgia for everyone to have fun.
I wish they were still alive to show them how the poor people ruined it.
Look at these diapers they put in it. Take it back. Take it back.
You should have never given it to us.
Too many diapers.
So a lot of the springs have become state parks.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about those. So what are some of your favorite?
I love De Leon Springs Park.
Okay,
in Volusia County, where you have the pancakes.
Yeah.
It's my favorite place, and it has an amazing history.
Sugar Mill.
That's my home. I mean, that was De Leon Springs. I lived in De Leon Springs.
Yeah.
Brandywine, right there across from Trails West, as you're going to the Springs.
Yeah.
Like, and it was awesome. Alexander Springs.
Yeah.
Gemini Springs. Those are all around.
You can't swim in Gemini anymore.
You can't?
No, it's too polluted.
Polluted.
So that area has become so developed, and they're all in septic, and so like you said, the groundwater goes in, all the poop and stuff from people's septic.
You doo-dooed up Gemini, and I'm a Gemini. On June 12th, you killed my spring with your poo-poo.
It's fecal coliform bacteria. That's what they found. The levels are too high in Gemini.
I used to swim in that all the time. Maybe that's
Really?
what's wrong. What if I could have been 6 foot tall? If I used to go there all the time.
Oh, you got stunted by doo-doo.
Have you been to Green Springs?
I have not been to Green Springs.
So if you go over on I-4 across the St. Johns River, go to Enterprise, which is just south of Deltona. It's a county park, and it's amazing because it's one of those ones that people went to. And the water is not clear. It's this kind of weird jade color.
Okay.
And there's these live oak trees that go right over. You're not supposed to swim in it, but it doesn't stop people.
Oh,
Okay.
I know that. I used to call it Deltona Springs because people used to say you jump off the oak tree.
Yeah,
you talk about that.
Yeah. And then I remember when I lived in Deltona, they're like, "Have you been to Deltona Springs?" And you jump off an oak tree, you have to get back in there.
You said 3 diapers. We rate our springs with inflated diapers now.
So you jumped it. So how could you get to the bottom? I mean, did you feel anything?
I never went there. I've seen it. I never. When I was
just
there,
lied to him.
No, I never. Well, people told me about it,
okay.
and I went there and looked at it, but I never jumped off and swam in it. So the any other spring, like I know. Like
what's the largest?
Well, the springs, how far south do they go? Because you get to a point where it's all limestone in like southern Florida, and there's not that many springs. Like in the Everglades, around like Naples and stuff. Like it seems to stop north of Okeechobee, around there, right?
Yeah, there's a few that are south of I-4, but most of them are north of I-4 because of the Florida aquifer, which is the source of the water. It's like a quadrillion gallons. They don't even know how much water is in the Florida aquifer. It goes into Georgia and South Carolina and Alabama, and that's the source. But below, and when you get into South Florida, it's the Biscayne aquifer, so it's a different aquifer, and it's a different kind of geology. There are a few exceptions. There's one called Warm Mineral Springs, which is in Northport, Florida, near Venice.
Okay.
And it's actually a warm spring. And that's one of the furthest south. And then there's a tiny little one in Bonita Springs. And that's, I think, the furthest south that I know of any springs.
Is the warm spring you're mentioning the one that's like around 80-something
Yeah, it's
degrees?
87, I think.
Yeah, and that was another fountain of youth, I believe, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
exactly.
I was reading about that one because I wondered if we had any warm springs. I know that sounds like a silly question, but we do.
Yeah.
Not very many.
Well, so they would promote them all as warm springs because when you came down in winter and it's like 30 degrees out, if it's 72, that feels warm.
Yeah, you're from Detroit. Yeah. 72, you're like, it's bathwater. You know, like, it's funny because Northerners do, like, they'll be swimming in our springs way before us Floridians. we're like, man, the St. John's is you know,
but I
nice.
look at them, I'm like, knock it off.
Yeah, St. John's 86. Like that's a swimming pool in there.
Yeah.
And then or it gets hotter too. But like the springs can be like they feel colder in the summer.
Yeah.
And that's the trick. Like the best time to go to the springs is when it's in the 70s outside, because the spring water feels way warmer than when it's 90 outside. You get in that 72 water, it is frigid.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. When I like to go laser hot and burn myself and then just lay in the ice cold water. I feel so
I
good.
went to Green Cove Springs. So Green Cove Springs, they still have it's like a 3rd magnitude spring, which means it's not a ton of water, and it goes into like a little swimming pool and then out into the St. John's River. And I did that in summer. And I swear, a half hour after I got out, I was still shaking. My fingernails were still blue.
Yeah.
It's cold, man. It's really, really
so
cold. Am I? Is it true that you you write?
Yeah.
You graphic design and art, and now you're doing. Are you doing ceramics?
I am. I'm doing
Tell me
ceramic
about
sculpture.
that. Is that your alligator on your website?
Yeah.
I love that.
Thanks.
That's fantastic.
It's all Florida-inspired stuff, you know. So I like to do kind of. I'm kind of inspired by the Victorian stuff too, you know, so like the Fiji mermaids and things like that. You were talking about Ripley's. I love the stuff in Ripley's.
Tom's very mad at
Well,
Ripley.
okay.
As a young man.
Some of them are lies.
That's the fun of it.
He didn't know.
That's not fun at all. Rick.
Honestly, until yesterday,
it's not
10
even
a.m., he thought Ripley was an upstanding man that just gave knowledge to the world.
Hold on, Rick. I thought it was like, you know, it's like, this is true, believe it or not. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's like,
he
hey,
thought
science, like gravity is true,
let me
believe it or
explain
not.
to him. He thought that the believe it or not was more of a, hey, take it or leave it, it's true.
Yeah.
Like he took believe it or
Whether
not
you believe
as
it or
like,
not
hey, it's true, you can believe it or not, that's on you. That's how he took it. But it's never been that way. It's believe it or I'm lying to you is what they're saying.
We're going to find out half the stories are just nonsense.
Yesterday.
There's not even nothing.
Between Ripley yesterday and Rachel Reagan, you're gonna have a heart attack. You were so mad yesterday. Between those two things, between Australian breakdancing and Ripley being a liar, you're gonna lose your mind.
They have a Fiji mermaid, I think, in St. Augustine, where they take like a taxidermy fish, put a taxidermy monkey, and attach them and make them like this old mermaid thing, and I love that stuff.
Yeah. I wanted a jackalope, but Andrea won't let me buy one. They had one at Saltwater Cowboys in St. Augustine, the restaurant. They have a real jackalope there, but it's got a sheriff's badge on and guns.
I love taxidermy. I love taxidermy.
I've got some weird pieces. I've got a piece of pigskin with a tattoo on it that's stretched and it's hung on my kid's wall.
I'm not sure I needed to know that.
Yeah, it's real creepy.
So, Rick, have you visited every Florida spring that's public? No,
there's over 1,000.
Oh, over 1,000?
Yeah. We have the largest array of freshwater springs in the world.
Wow.
So is there anyone that is like on your bucket list of that you haven't been to yet that maybe we don't know about? Because
or who's got the worst name of springs? There's got to be one where the name is terrible.
Because the most popular springs, you're right, Rick, and we made the joke, and it is true that social media has totally made them crowded, and most of them are at capacity before basically
before
it even opens.
6 a.m.
And but there still are some more hidden springs, some more out of the way springs that people don't know about.
Yeah, a lot of the best ones are in the Panhandle, and I haven't really even started to explore those. I mean, there's another Ponce de Leon Springs in Holmes County that looks incredibly beautiful. The one here, they built that berm, and it's just not that pretty. I mean, it's fun to swim in, and I love the pancakes, but this one looks like a pristine where you get that kind of cerulean, cyan-colored water.
Yeah.
That looks great. There's one called Merritt's Mill Pond where they actually did kind of build a dam to rise the water level, but there's a number of springs, and they all look perfect and pristine.
I've been there before.
You have?
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
You talked about that one.
That's when I went up to see the Florida caves. Because there's
in Mariana.
Yeah, there's caves in Mariana. There's tons of springs around there. And
we like that one.
We went all around there, and that is like old Florida because there's still diving boards in the springs. Like like it was in like 1950s
Yeah,
and
I
stuff.
called him. I'm like, what are you doing today? He's like, oh, me and the boys, we're going to stomp all the algae so the turtles don't have anything to eat. We're just going to stomp it.
No.
He didn't say that. He didn't do that.
But it's
No,
like
he takes it serious.
I like a good old school Springs diving board.
I do too.
That there's one lifeguard just watching.
Yeah. And I like a man with a high-waisted swimsuit.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
there. Like he's got his swimsuit over his belly button. He's smoking a cigarette. He's about to do a backflip.
Yeah. All the Florida trash children jumping into the spring, and my kids in
got
there.
His hair combed like Superman.
Yeah, they're all freezing because it's in the summertime. It's hot as hell, and the springs are so cold. Now, what would you say, Rick? Because you've done, you've written multiple books. You've written books about the springs. Is there anything that you would suggest that we could do to help better preserve these? Or, I feel like, it's kind of one of these things. It's a state park, and now because the marketing and social media, everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody knows where they're at. So it's like it's inevitable that they're going to be full all the time. But you mentioned going in the winter. There's still some certain times that they're not as packed.
Yeah, the bad thing, like you talked about Blue Springs and Volusia County, you can't go there in the winter because it's full of manatees and they won't let you swim.
Yeah.
So, but if you go to the Ocala National Forest, you can swim with the manatees, which is pretty cool. But there's not a lot of people too. The biggest thing I think, if you wanted to help the springs, is anytime you put fertilizer on your grass, if you own a house, that's going into the groundwater and that's hurting our springs. So I think in Orlando, the dividing line is kind of 50. So the spring shed, on the north side is the St. Johns River. So it's all going to end up going to the springs of the St. Johns River. On the south side, it's all going to end up in the Everglades. So if you can keep your fertilizer, if you have native plants, that's what I really preach, is to do at least one section of your yard that doesn't need to be irrigated. Because that's the other part of it, is taking too much water out of the aquifer.
Sure.
Yeah. If you can limit the amount of water you withdraw and limit the amount of pollutants you put in, you're going to help the springs.
Here's the problem, Rick. I stopped doing my fertilizer, stopped irrigating. My grass is all dead and brown. And then I walk out and I look around.
Crunchy good under those toes.
And then all my neighbors, they don't care because they're all fertilized crazy, watering all the day.
You were just telling me the other day you just over-fertilized.
And then I'm like, well, I'm doing it. No one's doing it. Like, no one else is doing it. They're all ruining the springs. So I'm going back to fertilizer. And then I go back to it, and I'm like, oh, I'm ruining the springs.
I would suggest possibly leaving a passive-aggressive note in each of their mailboxes. That could help. That could help save the springs.
The secret is just to start a little section at a time. Just get a few native plants, go out to Lucas Nursery, and they have a native plant section, and just do a little bit at a time. Pick up a little bit of grass until you don't have wildness going. You want a certain amount of wildness, but there has to be some order, because we need a little bit of order.
There you go.
What's also disappointing about the springs, besides from we're ruining them, is that they don't actually heal you. Because I
feel like they do though. Cold water, I feel like there is something to it. Because I felt like when I got
it's got to be cold.
When I got it was 62 degrees. I was in the Cartacay River in Georgia in Ecology, and I was soaking my butt in the Cartacay, and I got to tell you, my backside's never felt better. That 62-degree water, I felt like everything healed up and was tight.
But I remember, me and Crystal were in the springs water, and then thinking, I think there's a lot of minerals in here. Is it good for you? Whatever. Then I looked up the internet, nothing. Doesn't actually do anything good for it. And then Crystal's hair is like, my hair's all crunchy because of minerals. And then I'm like, oh, it didn't do nothing.
Let's remind everybody where they can see the talk.
So the talk, and then Rick, also plug your books and your website real quick.
Yeah, rickkilby.com. My book's Finding the Fountain of Youth is my first book. It's kind of I'd like to say it's a coffee table book, but it's softbound, a lot of images and stuff. And then my other one is Florida's Healing Water. Both of them won Florida Book Awards. And
congrats, man, that's killer.
Thanks. A lot of images. I'm a graphic designer, so I got to design them how I liked them, which is big pictures. Because I believe people are visual learners, and you learn as much from the pictures as you do the text. For sure. So there will be a lot of images at my presentation on Thursday.
You can also check out these books from the library.
Yeah.
Call back to my old job.
Orange County
Although
Library.
the one that you're in Once Upon a Time in Florida.
Right? Oh, yeah, that one.
That one is hard to get right now. It's very popular.
Could it be because it's in your office?
No. I returned it.
Get off that! Hurry up! That's awesome.
Rick, have you ever been scuba diving in the springs down there? Because
That scares the crap out of me.
Because I went down to the bottom of Blue Springs and then saw the cave entrance.
Yeah, see the sign.
Yeah, see the sign of the Grim Reaper. But it's
no
like
one pass.
there's people that dive the aquifer and stuff, and there's a huge cave system underneath Florida, which is pretty fascinating as well.
I mean, supposedly there's rooms you could park a 747 in under the ground. There is this great documentary they did years ago, and somehow they got over by the Wekiva, and they're like following them above ground with this radio thing, and they're like going through a Sonny's restaurant, and like they're right below the Sonny's, and they end up coming up behind what used to be an Albertsons.
It's crazy, the tunnels and the caverns that are underneath Florida that we have no idea. Like you said, like gigantic caverns filled with spring
water. All I can think about is like making one wrong turn, and then I'm in the cave with the 747. You know, I'm walking around. I'm like, I got to find the way out of here. And I look at I got to look at my air. Not good.
And some of the connections, you can barely get through. And so if they cave in, you're out of luck. That's why I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I won't do that either.
Also, I've told myself as soon as they tell me the spring water went up by 1 degree, that's when I'm like, oh, we're dead. Because it's been 72 consistently for I don't know how many years, Rick. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like it's never changed. 72. Like as soon as I see like some social media, like the springs water is now 73 degrees.
That's it. Pack your things. We're going to the moon.
That's how my sons don't have kids. Anyway, Rick, thanks so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
We if we ever get we'd love to have you in again sometime.
Sure.
If you ever write something else, or you got something else going on, pop on by, man. We love talking Florida, so we appreciate you being here. Scotty, always a pleasure seeing you.
Yeah. Anything else people need to know about this third Thursday?
Oh, just third Thursday, 5 to 9. We're open late. We're free. We've got the market, live music. City Arts will have an awesome art opening down the block.
This is a date night.
Then,
it's free.
Rick's talk starts at 5:30, so be there on time because he's a stickler.
Get there at 5. Starts at 5:30. Get there early because you want to make sure you don't miss anything.
Yep.
Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
we appreciate
for having
it
us, as always.
And we will be right back.
All right, we're still on YouTube and Twitch, but great job.
Perfect.
Thank you, man. That was awesome.
That was
That was
fun.
a boring topic.
No, it's something we like.
I could tell.
Yeah, we're into it.
Yeah. That's how we just pepper in so many jokes. It's like
that is Tuesday.
that's Tuesday too. So that aired tonight.
Got it.
So
Cool.
Thank you so much for your
We'll-
pleasure
we'll-
meeting you.
we'll be in touch. We'll
Scotty,
definitely
good
talk
seeing
to
you as
again.
always.
We like
I
talking
just
to
ran my
people,
own foot over.
And so anytime we have a springs question or whatever, we can maybe
let
give
me
you a call because we can just talk to you on the phone too, but make it easy on you.
Oh, cool.
Like check in with you.
I do have a card somewhere.
Yeah, I think Tom's got one out there too. Thanks again, y'all.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Rick.
Paul had a great time over there. Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Pleasure to meet you.
Going on next?
Yes, sir.
What are you going to talk about?
Hard act to follow with you, though. It's pretty cool stuff. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, when we get the Florida guys in here, it's always super fun. All right, a Florida history segment. Okay. We could do that. You want to do strange Florida history? Is that what you want to do? We could do something with that. It's something that Tom and I are both into. It would require a little bit of work, but I think we could do that. Let me jot her down. Strange Florida history. Not a bad idea. Once a month, we could call it Emily's Strange Florida History segment, sponsored by the History Center. That's because you guys like Florida as much as we like. I'm a Florida, Georgia boy. Those two states to me are rad. I'm going to go hit the restroom, guys. We'll be back.
But I knew that there was an agricultural history to that area. I think when the Greys owned it, they actually had cattle there on the property. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous area, and like we know what's causing it. We can fix it. We have the solution for it. It's just stay out there.
Yeah, we know how to make the springs healthy. Just not the local people to do it.
No, true. But
Last question: is Salt Springs the only spring in Florida that has the blue crab? Because when we were there like months ago, and that was the only time I've ever seen that. And from the internet said that because it was salt content and the mineral that the blue crab could live there.
I think you could see them like at other springs along the St. Johns because you find them all along the St. Johns. In fact, there's crab companies that do it, but you're most likely to see them.
Okay.
That's all. There's a place in the middle of the river called Croker Hole that's a salt spring that you don't see because it's in the middle of the river. And I bet you can find them everywhere.
Okay.
So, and it's purely a salt spring. It's all salt water.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Did Allie get you pictures?
no, I saw one photo that was posted from when everyone was doing their staff selfies, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen any others
He
from
was
the
the
event.
summer camp.
Yeah.
I got.
That's
Oh,
right.
that's why I know you from all those pictures.
Do you have the card by chance? 'Cause
Oh.
I can just send them to you.
No, I don't actually.
Maybe I do.
If
If
you
you can just email me.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I know,
All right.
I grabbed
They're
a bunch
still
of-
recovering.
That was good.
Yeah,
So-
it's good.
No, of course. Yeah,
But I
brought my life-size dinosaur.
Oh, yeah, well, I saw the pictures. It's so, the kids will look at them. We got classic pictures of the kids just like, they're not posing, they're really just ecstatic.
Yeah.
To see it. That's so cool.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here
Yeah, I know, I made a ceramic dinosaur.
this morning.
It fit in the kiln, so I didn't have to mount.
Did you really? What's nice seeing you. Scott, good seeing you again. Jeff says hello, by the way.
Nice to meet you.
Great
Good luck.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
See you guys. Come on in, man.
Good morning, bro.
It's good to see you. How are you doing?
The pleasure is all mine, as always.
Have a seat. We'll put you right over there in the hot corner. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
There's something here. You got something. You brought toys.
I had to
Good to
upgrade
see
a
you.
little bit.
How you been? You look like you've been lifting weights.
Thriving and surviving.
Are
I'm
you
doing
doing
the best I
that?
can.
Well, you look like you've been beefing up, man.
I appreciate that.
You
Thank
look
you so
good.
much. I've just been parting it on the side.
It's good to see you. What's new? Everything been good?
Things are going well, man.
You're busy though. That's what Tracy was giving us a little update.
Oh, I'm very excited.
On
We got
what's-
some
yeah.
cool things going
You got
on.
tons of cool stuff happening.
And nonprofit is starting to thrive.
Congrats.
It's,
Can you hear yourself okay?
I can hear me. Yes.
Okay, good. I want to make sure you got that. Awesome. The guys can hear you and see you now. Do you need anything to drink?
Nope. I grabbed myself a
Beautiful.
little bottle of water over there. And,
Love it.
Should be okay for the moment.
I figured out something about these. The Topo Chico. I love Topo Chicos.
Yeah.
Or Topo Chicos, however you say it. This is the one with twist of grapefruit.
Yeah.
But because they pre-add the hint of grapefruit, it has less carbonation. And I like that this is the one that
Oh.
stings your mouth. It's got so much carbonation.
Yeah.
And I like it when it stings. And I'm guessing that that's the reason why.
It's like
'cause-
when they put a slice of orange on a beer to help break down some of the foam a little bit.
Exactly. Or you, if you're gross, you use your finger.
Yeah.
You know, like what, and then it like goes down. Yeah.
Topo Chico, that's a Salvador Dali thing too, right? Didn't he design the logo for that? I know he did the Chupa Chups.
You know,
but I think that's
I
a
don't
Salvador
know,
Dali
but
thing.
I could definitely see that. But I know it is a delicious Mexican spring water.
I believe that they are modern arts. Every time I drink one, I keep my pinky up.
There you go. There you go. Well, thanks for
Jimmy,
being here, man.
Last time we interviewed you, did we do the segment as a weird job, or it was because of the Science Center, right? We just had you on because of the Science Center.
It was a weird job Wednesday. We
Oh,
did
okay,
last
okay,
Oh.
yeah. That's fine. We won't do it.
Yeah,
I was
that's
like, should we do a weird job?
we thought about it, but
Okay.
Well, it is still Wednesday, my dudes.
No, yeah.
suck the air out of it, Jimmy. We don't want to do it. Now.
Okay.
We hate it. No, I'm kidding. All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's talk some dinos.
Woo.
Is this a coming back?
This is a new. This is for Wednesday.
Starting.
Yeah,
I'll start
Wednesday
us.
one.
Here we go. In 3, 2. It is another A Corporate Time with Tom and Dan. I'm Dan.
I'm Tom.
We are live on Twitch and YouTube right now, and you can join us every single Monday through Friday. Just search Tom and Dan live on Twitch or YouTube, and you can, watch our faces as we talk.
Dino Jimmy's here. How you doing, Jimmy?
Having a dino-tastic day? How are you guys doing?
Oh, Jimmy.
Always fantastic around here.
Man, we haven't seen you in a minute. Why has it been so long since we've had Dino Jimmy in studio?
Oh, Dino Jimmy's busy.
He's also a superstar.
yeah.
You're a superstar. You're a mover and shaker.
By the way, you have a way cooler job title than I do because I heard you introduce yourself to one of our other guests. You're like, I'm a local paleontologist. And I'm like, well,
That sounds cool. That sounds cool.
You're a local podcaster.
Yeah.
You're like, no.
Everybody's a local podcaster now, including you probably, right? Do you have a podcast?
I do, in fact, have a podcast.
Tell me about it.
It's called Dinosaurs Will Always Be Awesome. And I'm on all the social medias at Dinosaur Podcast because it was available and I took it.
There you go.
And so the episodes that I've done, I've always been interviewing other scientists and researchers and people who have, fallen in love with dinosaurs at some point in their life and now take it as part of giving something back to the world. So, I've been a little slow on the episode release lately because I've been focusing on other things because Dinosaurs Will Always Be Awesome has actually kind of evolved now into a mobile dinosaur museum. So I haven't been around because I've been traveling around.
A mobile museum, Tom.
People love the podcast, though. People love talking about it because everyone has a cool dinosaur story. We love to talk about these amazing animals.
Yeah, we have some listeners of your podcast in our chat room that say hello and that they love your show.
What up, Twitch? What up, YouTube?
Well,
Hi, everybody.
It was interesting. Since the last time we talked to Jimmy, I was in Moab and I saw some dinosaur footprints. And I got to tell you, I saw, I was like, hey, there's dinosaur footprints on this rock up here. By the way, it's just on the side of a road, which is crazy.
So it's not like...
Yeah. You would think it would be the...
is there a plaque or anything saying, like, hey, dinosaur feed? Or
there's a little plaque that talks about it. And but you walk down this little trail. It's on the side of a cliff. And there's some...
How big were the feet?
They're like the size of paper plates. And I'm not sure what dinosaur...
paper plates.
It's like about the size of a paper plate the footprint was, and it was just up the side of a rock, and it's almost unreal where you're like, no way.
You didn't tell me this. I'm a little bit fascinated. Would we have any idea of knowing how big that dinosaur would be with his feet being the size of paper plates?
There was some plaque that talked about what kind of dinosaur it was.
Jimmy looks like he
wasn't
knows.
a raptor or anything.
No, I love it. I love hearing your perspective on this because I can go to these things and I look around and I'm in awe of these moments where we get to actually connect with these ancient animals. But I always love hearing other people's stories about how much they enjoyed it. So you saw these footprints.
Yep.
Were they more like, did they look like giant bird footprints or were they big round kind of things? You said they're like dinner plates.
Yeah, they had 3 digits and they kind of it looked like the heel wasn't pressed in. So it was like
walk on their toes.
They walk on
That's a nerd. That's a nerd dinosaur. That dinosaur's never kissed a woman or man.
Although we did now find out that they had the most buxom of lips. So those 3-toed claws belong to a kind of dinosaurs called theropods, and that's the group that includes things like T-Rex. And if you were out there in Utah, very possibly could have been something like an acrocanthosaurus, which is like a really big, angry carnivore with like spines all down its back. It's a really cool looking thing.
Yeah, man.
But we find those footprints, and you want to talk about how big they are and how fast they are. By looking at those footprints, we can determine like how far apart they are. We get the stride length of the animal, and then we can tell you how tall this thing was, how heavy it was, and how fast it was moving.
Whoa.
There was a place I went to in Glen Rose, Texas. It's this really gorgeous place. They actually have the original dinosaurs from the New York World's Fair ended up there. So the T-Rex and the Brontosaurus are right there. It's like, oh my God, these are here. No one talks about these things.
That's crazy.
They have a section. It's in a river. So you walk into the river and you're stepping into the footprints of dinosaurs.
They're not worried about the erosion of the river.
They've been there hundreds of millions of years so far. Now, erosion can be a significant factor if they didn't have millions of these things here already. So there's like, no, you guys, we're not affecting anything. The river was already here. The feet were already here before that. Here. So we're not changing anything.
Yeah, leave it alone.
Just don't go out there and be a jerk. So I put on an inflatable Triceratops costume and galloped across the seas.
Yeah, of course. That's what you're supposed to do.
I felt, we're going to save it for the next time? Come on. But this place is called the Ballroom, is what they named it, because there were so many footprints in such a dynamic area. You could actually see from like the ridges up on top oh, this is where a bunch of long-necked dinosaurs got ambushed by some carnivores, and they were fighting everybody off, and you can see where the carnivores scattered this way, and then like the sauropod feet are a little bit slower because they're limping at this point. So you can see just from, and not even bones here, just the evidence of these animals that were here so long ago, and just watching all this, it's such a cool thing to see.
Well, Jimmy, before you brought a bunch of stuff to show us. Before you show us, I want to ask you a question because I was talking to my kids. I constantly tell them how the Earth was made and about the science of
man. You're so intense.
of the universe, which the misinformation they're absorbing. But they're getting the gist of it. They kind of understand. Anyway, so I often tell them, I'm like, well, if that asteroid never hit Earth that caused the dinosaurs to go extinct, like human beings may never even be here, because we never would have evolved. The dinosaurs would have eaten us, or like eaten any sort of primate that ever got to a point. Because the dinosaurs have ruled for millions of years, and
they were killing it.
And most likely they would have kept. I mean, they probably would have changed, and some of them would have died off, but I don't think there would have been humans. So I'm interested to hear your take about it.
So when the extinction event at the end of the Cretaceous period, so the time of the dinosaurs is what we call the Mesozoic. When you look at all time, we've got Paleozoic, which means old time, Mesozoic, which means middle time, and Cenozoic, which means recent time. Guess which one we're in? So the Mesozoic was the time of the dinosaurs. At the end of the Mesozoic, like the last chapter of that was the Cretaceous period. That's when T-Rex and Triceratops and all the cool ones are floating around. The Earth was going through a bunch of different things at that time. So we not only had this really grand assortment of animals of all shapes and sizes over the world, but there were a lot of other things going on. Like we had these places called the Deccan traps and the Siberian traps. These are just open pits of toxic gases that are kind of spilling out from underneath the surface. So like when we capture natural gas and stuff now, we can put it into some utilitarian use. But back then, this is just a thing that happens. Don't go near the smoky green pit because we lost Phil 3 weeks ago, and that sort of thing. And so those were getting bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, you got this big rock from space that hits the Yucatan Peninsula, and then it shook the entire surface of the Earth. And all those extra gases decided, well, I guess we're going out today. So they all kind of rise up, and they otherwise would have been stuck under the ground. So you had the meteor impact sending dirt and dust and debris up into the atmosphere, just clouding everything out for thousands of years. And then you also have these raging toxic gases that are just now, we live here now, and they're so dense and heavy, like they come up and then they stay at the bottom. Like, you know how when they say, if there's a fire, you got to like stop, drop, and roll and get low because, the oxygen is down here and the fire's up here. The toxic gases were still down here. And so if you were small enough, if you couldn't get away from it, it's what
I'm small
took you
enough.
out.
I'm small enough, Jimmy.
That's
why
the
I'm
smaller
here. That's why I
animals
live. That's why I evolved to live.
So it wasn't only the asteroid, but the shaking up of these gases.
Yeah.
That also sounds terrifying, the whole thing you're describing.
That was a really rough spring break.
From a dinosaur's perspective, right? Because I'm guessing they would just be choked out and die, and if the asteroid didn't get them.
Right. And how did those ground mammals that we evolved from survive through that?
So the ones that were able to either burrow down or fly away from the really nasty areas were able to get away. So
is that why we have birds?
That's why we have birds. Birds are modern dinosaurs. That's why the footprints that you saw, those big three-toed footprints, look the same as the footprints you see of seagulls if you go out to New Smyrna Beach, or flamingos now that they're back in Florida, because birds are in fact living dinosaurs. Not just relatives of dinosaurs, they're just the next page of dinosaurs.
So, Jimmy, let's talk about what you brought us for show and tell today.
I don't even know what it is. This guy's good with a secret, I'll tell you that.
So what do we got here?
Yeah, you always have cool stuff.
I brought some cool stuff with me here today. And last time I was here, I showed you a bunch of really interesting parts and pieces. And I said, if I was going to come back again, I was going to need to step it up a little bit. And so we're talking about the Theropod dinosaurs, and we're talking about the really big angry ones. So I decided to bring this guy.
Wow.
Whoa, dude.
So what are we looking at? It looks like a giant dinosaur head with teeth.
This is a giant dinosaur head with teeth. This is the skull of a dinosaur called Albertosaurus. It's a relative. It's an older cousin of Tyrannosaurus rex. And this guy was absolutely incredibly crazy. Its entire name means Albertosaurus sarcophagus. It's the Alberta lizard that is the flesh eater, because it's got these massive sharp teeth to rip apart anything that's in its way. And you can see if I hold the eyes straight toward the camera, you can see the eyes are up here, so it's forward facing, kind of like an eagle or a hawk. So this guy was a complete predator. And
Terrifying.
Yeah. He looks right at you. Look at, oh, that's scary.
Kind of looks like, you know what it looks like? The old Tony Hawk skull.
You're right. Yeah.
You know, like that is. May I hold it?
Of course.
So
This was it's a replica. It's made of fiberglass, but it's an exact copy of the actual thing, because they don't let those things out of Canada too
Look
often.
how big that is, dude.
So where was this found?
This was found in Canada, actually in the province of Alberta, and it got the name Albertosaurus because the guy who found it was a guy named Joseph Burr Terrell, and he found it the same year that province was named. And so we're going to call this state, we're going to call this area, it's going to be Alberta from here on out. And he's like, okay, this will be the Alberta lizard. This is our big dino here. So
Well, they couldn't come up with anything more interesting than that.
They should have. When you say older version of T-Rex, meaning this obviously came before T-Rex?
It came before T-Rex, a couple of million years before Tyrannosaurus Rex, but part of the same lineage. So this would be like a great-great-grand cousin of a Tyrannosaurus.
More lethal, considering? Like, did it...
Oh, it depends.
Or they're different?
They're different kinds of lethal. So this guy's really big, but he's got a very narrow jaw with the sharp teeth that are really strong.
Gotcha.
In Tyrannosaurus Rex, so I brought just a small piece of a T-Rex here.
What? What is that? It's like a bear claw.
So this, I'm going to flip this around. You can actually see this is this little part here of the Albertosaurus. Let me bring it into, I don't know where my cameras are.
Yeah, there you go.
So this little section right here at the front, we call this the maxilla. So the beginning of the Albertosaurus teeth. And that's what it looks like in Tyrannosaurus Rex here. So it's T-Rex is bigger.
I mean, how many times bigger? That looks like more than double. The size.
So an Albertosaurus would be.
So this would be like right here.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my God, dude! That'll just crush. You could crush like 7 human heads in his mouth.
So there's a great event that they just did a couple of weeks ago out in Montana. They do the Dino Shindig, and they actually built a mechanical tyrannosaur jaw where they cast the teeth out of aluminum, and it's dialed into the right, like the amount of bite force, because T-Rex was the strongest bite of any creature that ever lived ever. It'll chomp through anything.
Well, that answers that.
And so they brought this thing out. It's like, let's start throwing watermelons in here. Let's get a pumpkin in here. And then they just like crunch it all. It's like Gallaghersaurus up there.
Just to kind of see what it's like.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
It's so clever.
So, Jimmy, you brought up something that a lot of people, and I'm sure from doing this so long, the misconception that there was only, one set of species of dinosaurs that we all know, and we forget
the ones
about
we grew up with as kids.
Yeah, but the millions of years that all these dinosaurs evolved and had time to change and stuff. So, what we know of are basically the latest dinosaurs before they all became extinct, right? And then you got the millions of years prior, where there's all different species of dinosaurs, different types. Now, I'm sure they started smaller and they got to an apex. Is that right? Or because I imagine like things evolved.
Yeah, how
to
does
their
that work?
environment.
Like, what were some of the characteristics of, let's say, this older version of T-Rex?
Yeah.
What were some of the characteristics of dinosaurs of his time? Did they all kind of fall in line,
or just smaller?
So this all goes down to the very principle of what scientists and educators are talking about when we drop the E word. When we say evolution, it's the adapting of animals that are able to survive. They've got the right features. They're able to endure a changing climate, a rough weekend with other predators.
Right.
They're able to attract enough mates to carry their genes along.
Sure.
And that's what it is. And then over a long period of time, a couple of things that are different about this one versus that one start to show up in future generations. So the process of evolution is just, hey, were you cool enough to survive that week and then carry your genes forward? And so that's why we see things like the D-shaped cross-section of the teeth in Albertosaurus, which make it really, really strong. It's like biting with a suspension bridge. Like it's able to withstand incredible pressure on the teeth without also breaking its own jaw.
That's interesting.
So those kind of things kind of carry it forward.
It's interesting that, that's crazy, dude.
Now, speaking of evolution,
Yeah.
I get a lot of my science knowledge from 90s sitcoms.
And TikTok.
And
TikTok.
there was a 90s sitcom called Dinosaurs that I'm sure you're familiar with,
Yep.
which, by the way, does not hold up.
Yeah.
I
don't know if you, the Not the Mama guy, he's going to be at one of these cons, and it's a ginormous black guy. I didn't know it was like a humongous bodybuilding black guy played the baby, not the mom.
Nice.
We're going to try to talk to him.
I want to talk to him.
So,
Those
but
Muppets are like 70 pounds apiece. He's doing lifts all day.
Exactly. He's like a muscly dude.
the idea of the show is that I guess the asteroid didn't hit. They didn't become extinct until later on. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
Until it got canceled.
And then they all the dinosaurs got smarter and then built houses and they basically became dinosaur humans because they eventually got more intelligent. But that's not how evolution works because there may not be a need to get more intelligent if you have enough food, you can reproduce, the environment's right. Like they probably would have just kept on going. And if they didn't become extinct, still exist today, maybe smaller because the jungles are smaller or environment has changed, but they wouldn't necessarily become super intelligent, right?
So I thought the purpose of the dinosaurs was just the honeymooners without pants. But yeah, so there was a scientist who passed away a few years ago. His name was Dr. Dale Russell, and he created a model of something called the Dinosauroid, which would be one of the intelligent dinosaurs, so something kind of like a raptor that had a large enough brain, was able to figure out how to use tools and different things like that, and how its body would change over time. And then it ended up looking like this. Yeah, you're pulling it up right there. It's like this really weird-looking green alien kind of creature, but it's the elements of a dinosaur in the shape of a human being.
So he
that is
theorized
terrifying,
that
Jimmy.
it could have evolved into that?
It was a what if episode.
Okay.
It's like, if we didn't have this, and if we had that, and if everything else on the surface of the earth continued the exact same way, and if they figured out how to turn fire into a tool of some kind, and and if they no longer needed to balance their bodies with long tails so they could walk upright like people and things like that, what would it potentially look like? But the answer ultimately of what happened if the dinosaur didn't go extinct is still birds.
Yeah. They just all would eventually turn into birds.
So not all of them. Not all of them.
Okay.
So we got one branch that actually, so like the T-Rexes and the raptors and all those kind of the three-clawed ones, those are what we call the avian theropods. That's the group that ended up turning into everything we call birds. The other ones, like the Triceratops and the Apatosaurus and Stegosaurus, that line didn't have the capability of flying or running fast enough or getting away from certain things. So those non-avian dinosaurs are the ones that all went extinct completely. So there won't be another Triceratops or anything like that again, unfortunately. But the little bits of the DNA of dinosaurs like T-Rex and Velociraptor still persist every Thanksgiving.
The Dinosauroid, am I saying that right?
Dinosauroid.
Dinosaur, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
It is terrifying. It looks like a straight up an alien because some of them are communicative and have like language and carry like bags and have tools.
Yeah.
And have like axes and like.
Oh, they have a man person.
Yeah, they have a man person. Yeah.
It would be a satchel.
So,
this guy's got a satchel on, Jimmy.
well, Jimmy, let's talk about water dinosaurs.
Sure.
Because they, from TikTok, there's still some people that are holding out a hope that there's some sort of deep ocean or lake. I mean, obviously, this is where Loch Ness Monster stems from and stuff. And because there's a lot, I mean, they throw out the stat that a certain percentage of our ocean has never been explored, like a large percentage. And there are, huge, deep trenches and stuff that we've only seen a certain percentage of. And they're like, well, there could be an ancient dinosaur living down there,
just chilling.
Yeah.
He's down there just chilling.
And so I'm sure you've heard a lot of those theories. What's your opinion on it?
So the answer to all that is we find new things all the time. We find new fossils and new animals all the time. So when we try to explore whether certain things might still be existing in a certain area, there's a question of like, well, we need at least 50 individuals to carry on for an ecosystem. So if you can't find just one Loch Ness monster, you need 50 Loch Ness monsters. Otherwise, they're just not going to be able to breed and carry things on. But when we go out exploring and we find new things, we can change our complete idea of what these animals were. And that's one of the reasons you guys haven't seen me in a while. So back in April, I was part of a study we published on a new kind of marine reptile that we uncovered that was actually discovered. Parts of it were found back in 2016, and the most recent pieces actually was found by an 11-year-old girl who told her dad during COVID, like, I just want to go outside. I want to go fossil hunting for the weekend. Can we go do that? And dad's like, yeah, sure, we'll go out. And they go and they pick up this huge rock. And the daughter's like, this is not a rock. This is a bone. This is some animal face piece. This is something. And the dad's like, no, yeah, it's definitely something. This is from a creature that was alive. We got to find out what this is about. And so they reached out to my friend, Dr. Dean Lomax. He's this fantastic paleontologist out of the UK, who is also one of the world's leading experts on creatures called ichthyosaurs, which are marine reptiles. Kind of looks like a dolphin / shark, but it's huge and they're reptilian. They're very cool looking creatures. So we start studying this thing and we say, not only is this a kind of an ichthyosaur, but the largest ichthyosaur we know has a smaller jawbone than this.
Whoa.
This is like 20% larger than the biggest ichthyosaur we have ever found. And so
this is one of those things where, like, you get the call from the 11-year-old and her dad, and then the guy, like, puts the phone down and he has to take his glasses off and hold his hands, right?
Exactly.
Like, oh my God, he's the biggest ichthyosaur we've ever seen. Yeah. He's like, oh my God, do you know what this means?
So I brought a miniature version of the first bone that Dean and his crew found in 2016. And so this is part of the jawbone. Now, it's a miniature version, so this is less impressive. But this entire thing is just a little piece of the lower jaw of this creature. And this entire bone would be the length of both of my arms. So it's about 5 feet long.
Yeah.
And so this is part of what we call a surangular. And if you look at it, there's a little groove on the inside part. That's kind of like, that would lead into like where the jaw and the teeth would be. So this is part
This little area.
Yeah. So that's at the back. That's a muscle attachment point. And then if you carry on down, like toward the mouthpiece of the pipe looking Pete, that right there, that groove, we call it a McKellen groove, that continues down the jaw, and that's where like blood flow and the teeth grooves and things all are. And so Dean had that, and we're like, we don't know what this actually is. This is a big kind of ichthyosaur, but when you find one, that's a cool one-off. You got to find another one.
Whoa.
And that's what Ruby and her dad did. They found a much longer, much more complete. No, this is, again, miniaturized version. This one is almost 2 meters long, 2.5 meters long. So this creature is gigantic. Based on the shape and the structure of this and comparing it to the jawbones of other kinds of ichthyosaurs, we scaled this up. This thing was probably, very likely, very possibly, about as big as a blue whale.
Wow. And a dolphin shark, blue whale.
Yeah, so here it is right here. We named the creature. We all put names in a hat, and they kind of took my name. So it's Ichthyotitan severnensis is the name of this creature. Ichthyotitan. It's this huge marine reptile.
You got to name this?
Yeah, I got to name it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And here it is alongside a blue whale. So you can get a sense of just how
there they are.
Just how massive it is. And then again, this is all projection because we're basing it off of the jaws and scaling everything up. It could turn out to be like it's got a blunt nose kind of thing or something like that.
No disrespect to the ichthyosaur, but that thing compared to a blue whale, terrifying.
Yeah.
It's got a pinchy nose.
Oh,
and
it's got
Check that out.
Essentially a long, teeth mouth.
Yeah.
And he's got a
in the
belly
front.
like mine.
It's a
This
big,
kind of looks
stocky...
like Jim Colbert if you turn it to the side. Yeah. Check that guy.
It kind of has the body of a sailfish a little bit, like with like 4 arm fins,
4 big paddles around the outside. Yeah, and it's a
could
dolphin.
It haul ass?
It could. So a lot of the ichthyosaurs were built for some real solid speed because their tail ends like a fluke. So their spine goes all the way to
shaped
the
like
end
an
of the tail.
airplane, like a big airplane.
And so like a little part of the top of the tail kind of split off right there. But they could, if they needed to, they could wing their tail up real fast, and they could actually reach pretty incredible speeds. This guy lived at the end of the Triassic period, which was that first chapter of the dinosaur age. So it's not a dinosaur. It is not a dinosaur. It is a marine reptile. And so this guy lived at the time before the Atlantic Ocean existed. Like the Atlantic Ocean was just starting up when this guy was swimming around.
Wow. And so marine reptile insinuates that it breathes air.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so other marine reptiles, because we find ichthyosaurs, and we find them very largely complete in many cases. So you can see the internal gut remains. We've seen some that actually had babies inside. We found some that died during childbirth.
Oh my God.
Possibly with like cholera and tuberculosis. Oh, father, fetch the.
Yeah, exactly. It was a terrible time.
Yeah.
Tough to be a woman.
They coughed into a handkerchief and saw blood and walked away. So you see them, and you can also see that they have these nose holes and the nostrils on the top of the skull, so they would breathe. Reptiles like their closest living relatives now are Komodo dragons and monitor lizards.
Really?
Very similar to those guys today. That's in the same, kind of like how birds are dinosaurs, monitor lizards are kind of.
So they can hold their breath, obviously.
For a long time.
They would pull in a big breath and then take off.
That's it.
That's dope.
Well, let's talk about finding fossils. Where did this girl find this fossil? Just washed up on the beach?
So there are a lot of places where you can go fossil hunting around the world, and every place has different rules for it. Florida has some pretty interesting fossil hunting rules. I'll get into it in a second.
Is that where you got to get the license?
You got to get a permit from...
We have one.
Yeah.
Andrea did it for Maisie. Maisie has a permit
for
fossil hunting.
It's so great.
She wrote into the government. I know, but I know.
Whatever I find is mine. That's Florida law.
Those are mostly the rules.
My pop told me I don't need a license to put in a new kitchen.
If you find anything
permit
at
for
the
nothing.
end of the year, you have to like write it down and send it in.
Right.
And we did that. Yeah, we did that.
Yeah. So it's $5 for the permit.
Yeah.
And then you're good for a year. And then and whenever you find something, first off, it's from an invertebrate. They don't really pay much attention to it. So you can get buckets and buckets of shark teeth and ray teeth and all that, ray bars and all that stuff you want. Enjoy it. Have a great time. But if you find something from a vertebrate creature, so like mammoths, mastodons, the woolly rhinos that we had around here, if you find those things, they want you to let them know. Like most of the times, if you find a really cool mammoth or a mastodon, they'll just be like, oh, neat. We got like 50 in the back, so enjoy that. Put it over the mantle there, and so like it's really more of a. Did you find anything cool? Thanks for letting me know. Enjoy the rest of your day. That's how Florida treats their fossils.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where are you most likely to find one in your experience?
That's a good question.
Because shark's teeth, right? From what I know about shark's teeth, all on the West Coast, basically, around Naples, Sanibel Island.
Yeah.
All of that, for whatever reason, I think it's because of how the oceans.
We did pretty good in Peace
Gulf.
River, though, just based
Peace
on...
River is that's where I like to go the most.
Yeah, we did really well there.
And every once in a while, someone will find a mastodon tooth.
Yeah.
Usually scuba divers, because it's obviously in deeper water or whatever. But where could we find, or most likely find, a cooler fossil?
You just mentioned the two best places that I can recommend here is when you go out to like Venice Beach area, like Casperson Beach and things like that. I have these special rakes that are just kind of like they look like frying baskets at the end of a mop, and you just kind of grab the sand and shake it all out, and then you'll see the shark's teeth and little pieces that you find. And people are so excited about finding the largest megalodon tooth you can. I get excited about the little megalodon teeth because Florida was one of the only places in the world that was a megalodon nursery. And so baby megalodons were born when Florida was still underwater and we were a shallow sandbar. So little baby megs could come out here and they could hunt more easily. They were protected from other predators. And then as they got to be these gigantic sharks, they moved out into colder waters and just started tearing stuff up.
Our friend EJ is a big fat baby megalodon. You just said baby megalodon. And all I can think of is my friend EJ, big fat EJ.
Let's start calling them Baby Meg.
Baby Meg, yeah.
Baby Meg.
All those in favor, vote in the chat room now. It stands.
Change your Twitch name.
Motion passes.
You got to put some tape on a picture of Jason Statham. Next time you see him, just slap him on the back with it.
Baby Meg.
So he's got a little Statham going with the Meg.
Baby Meg.
But we've all heard, and people have, you can find tons of shark teeth. They're lousy with them in like Venice Beach and stuff. To the point where you find so many, you're like, no, not interested anymore.
I will say
I got hundreds.
We had a good run at Peace River last time. I thought, like one time we got skunked. Because we didn't have the right equipment.
Oh, no.
As soon as
a storm
the kids
came.
Yeah, it was a storm. But as soon as the kids got all their, they got sifters and everything for people, then, last year, they found tons of shark teeth. To the point where they were like, well, we've
had enough. Yeah.
I mean, we found all of them.
Where could I find some jawbones and some cooler stuff?
So Ichthyotitan and the other kind of fossils like this were found on the coast of the Severn River, the Severn Estuary in the United Kingdom. So if you look at a picture of England, If you look up the UK and you see the map, and it kind of looks like a chess piece, and there's that little kind of jutting in portion on the west coast, that entire water body that's going into the island there, that's the Severn Estuary. And so these were found along the south coast of that in areas that are just continually the same as what we see here. Water comes in, water goes out, washes away more of the dirt and uncovers things that were just there this whole time that people didn't think to see or know to look for. And so when you find really cool things like these, the important thing to do, now in the UK and other parts of the world, not the same as Florida, so when you find a really cool fossil, the most important thing you can do, take a picture of it, drop a pin. I have apps that I use that let me get the actual latitude and tells me like what rock formation,
nice.
what age of the soil and stuff is, and run it past like a university or there's a bunch of different people, like here's the fossil project here. You can always send an email to me or hit me up at Dinosaur Podcast. I ID fossils for people all the time. They send me,
cool.
say, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's a cool rock. What about this one? It's just a cool rock. Is this a dinosaur egg? No, it's another cool rock.
All day long, yeah.
But so you document those things, and then you bring somebody into the conversation who knows how to protect it and how to keep it safe to see what the next steps might be. Whether it's going to end up going home with you or it's going to go to a museum or some of the third option I don't want to talk about, then those are the kind of things that are really worthwhile to make sure it's safe.
Well, let's talk about that third option.
All right.
Because I saw on TikTok the other day, there's this rich dude. He was young too, so he must have made his money.
Nothing makes us more mad than young rich dudes. Old rich dudes are fine. Young rich dudes, mad.
And I say young, he was like middle-aged, but he wasn't like in his 70s. But he was like, oh, you want to see something cool? He brought whoever there was like videoing him to his library, and he had a intact raptor fossil still in the rock. I don't know if we talked to you about this last time, but he's like, look, check this out. And then the whoever was interviewing was like, how much did that cost? He's like $200,000. And so and it was pretty awesome. It was smaller, but it was intact in a rock, and he bought it from some auction.
Yeah.
So who knows? And I was like, man, how many other rich people have intact, crazy fossils that should belong, or you would think be in a museum somewhere, and some rich guy's library
beef about that.
So how does that
but
work?
like imagine if you didn't know that guy, you'd never be able to see that. If I was a scientist studying raptors and I wanted to see more, like maybe there's an extra bite mark, maybe there's extra feathers on this one, maybe there's a group of babies inside that rock with something else.
Because there's only a finite amount that we know of. Yeah.
The conditions to make a fossil are so rare. Everything needs to die near water and then be left alone. And those are the first 2 steps out of like 150 steps to make a fossil happen. So that's why it's so hard to find things that are complete and all together. But when you see those kind of things together, it's like, I wish other people could see that. Not too long ago, there was a story of Apex the Stegosaurus. That was one of the most complete Stegosaurus specimens ever found, and it was up at auction at Sotheby's, and it went for some ungodly amount of money for this, like $42 million, I think, was that for this Stegosaur. And the guy who bought it with the intent of saying this needs to stay in the U.S. It needs to be in a museum. So hopefully he's gonna end up doing the right thing with it. Now that he's said that's what I plan to do. He's bought other things before and put them in places for display. And he actually just recently moved to Florida here too. So if he's looking for a place to store Apex, I got some room.
So,
put it right in front of Cappy's subs.
Because I'm sure some sheiks buy these things for their mansions, and like
other make it into ashtray.
Other rich dudes just buy it for display in their house.
I bought the unlistened to Wu-Tang album, and I'm just sitting on it.
What's the rarest fossil that's out there that's the coolest to you? Like, I mean, as far as like
personal fossils.
Yeah, like the
You're
fossil,
talking about his white whale that he wants to find?
I don't know if it's the most complete.
Mine is bigger than a whale.
Cooler, definitely cooler with that menacing snoot.
Yeah. So there's the things that I want to still find, and that I think I haven't found yet. Going back to your message a second ago, so my favorite fossil that exists is the Tyrannosaurus called Stan. That's the T-Rex you can see at the Science Center.
Okay,
the Orlando Science Center, the big T-Rex right there in the middle. I have him tattooed on my arm here. I got a paleo artist to do the design here for everything. So all the little broken bones and like the pathologies, like the injuries he sustained in his life, like, oh, you can see his broken neck here, and there's a tooth embedded in his rib here, and he took a bite out of his.
That's so
here.
cool.
he was another one. Went to auction. He's now in Abu Dhabi. And they're building a museum around this T-Rex with some of the things too. So that'll be really cool. And they just find, $2,000 to get a plane ticket to go out there, and I can go see him again. But so for me,
no beer. It's weird to me, right? Standing there looking at this Stegosaurus, can't even have a beer.
I'm sure there's places that they turn the other way. You have beer, or alcohol.
You should have said turn the other cheek.
But yeah, so I would love to one day find a Tyrannosaur tooth of my very own and be able to find one of those out there, because I'm going to Canada later on this month. I've been there a couple times before, and I've gone on some digs where Albertosaurus and other things are found. And we actually found a couple pieces of Tyrannosaur teeth. And it was so cool. Like the actual, you can see like the steak knife ridge of the edge of this T-Rex tooth. And even though it's only about this big of a chunk, I am enamored with this little glistening piece of a rock that used to be inside somebody's face 70 million years ago. And it's cool to find it, but those can't leave Alberta. So when you find a fossil up there in Canada, it has to stay in Canada. We have enough T-Rexes here in the States, though. I'd like to be able to get out and find one.
Don't you have a documentary that is coming out?
That's right.
Yeah. Is that why you were in Canada? Or
that's part of the reason. That's
tell
why
us
I'm
about
going
that.
up. So the film is called Why Dinosaurs, and it's the story of my good friend James Pinto, who is reconnecting with his dad, who is a filmmaker, and they are trying to answer the question about why people are so excited about dinosaurs in every shape and form. Because, I told you about ichthyosaurs here, and I think they're pretty amazing, but a lot of people are like, ichthyosaur what? It's like a fish, and he said water dinosaurs a little while ago. And so, no other prehistoric group of animals holds a grip on us the same way dinosaurs do. So they try to answer why that is by interviewing a bunch of researchers and paleontologists and people who have been impacted by dinosaurs. I'm one of those people. I'm in the movie, and so we're premiering it up in Drumheller, Canada.
That's cool.
At the end of August, and so you can see. I'm bringing it to Orlando here too. We're gonna have a local showing coming up in December.
It's very similar to they're age-old things that young people and children, but young people, young adults, men, women, like cars, automobiles, and jet fighters and dinosaurs. You can put dinosaurs in there. You can put princesses in there on the other side, but normally, but you know what I mean. There's certain tried and true.
Absolutely.
And dinos, you look at them maybe when you get a little bit older and you see how technology does this, that, and the other thing. Dino's holding strong.
Yeah.
I would say dino holding strong as far as an interest. Most little boys I know go through a dino phase.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's impossible not to.
Little girls too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Maisie did.
Last December, I was in the Smithsonian, and they have a whole dinosaur section.
Yeah. And
what I found fascinating is that they were able to literally give you the season that the asteroid hit the Earth
in the spring.
Because they were able to find dust from the asteroid thousands of miles away in other dinosaur fossils that they were like, oh, this was from the time, and then they saw, it's crazy how they could narrow it down to the time period. It's like the springtime of this long ago. That's when the asteroid. It's insane.
Yeah, it was Melanie During she's the paleontologist who actually discovered that in the first place, and so there's no. Dinosaurs are amazing and they're awesome in their own right, but when you say something to me like molten glass shrapnel, I was like, okay, well now let's talk about this for a little bit.
And that's what they found in
riddled in the legs and the gills of fish, and that's how they were able to narrow it down to the spring, is because so many of the creatures that were in this particular lake in Tanis that was riddled with all of this shrapnel were the kind of fish you only find in the springtime.
Interesting.
The bass are running this time of year, and over here they're all covered in fish darts and riddled with glass.
What a way to
it must
go!
Have been the same
glass
hour.
Shards. Oh my God!
Within the hour of the impact, it's crazy.
Is there anything that's still a mystery out there? It's funny how there's the other when you theories and evolution and the evidence that we have, the argument against it was well, we still don't have a complete species exact fossil record of it, so that means it's still up in the air. It's no, we have hundreds of pieces of evidence pointing towards this, and just because there's gaps in it doesn't make the whole thing untrue or still up in the air. It's just like, but you're pointing at small things. We're never gonna have a full fossil record of every species just because it's so rare, like you said.
Yeah.
But are there any questions about dinosaurs that are unanswered that people are still waiting for maybe the discovery of the answer?
Oh, tons of them.
Okay.
Tons of questions still. We're trying to figure out a lot of things that have to do with behavior. We know what color and what skin texture a lot of them had now. Like we used to know, we just assumed all dinosaurs were gray or green or just lumpy or things like that. And now we actually have skin impressions. We have entire mummified dinos where we can see their internal organs. We can see what the last meal of a dinosaur was. And there's a dinosaur that's up in Canada. It's called Borealopelta. And they looked inside the guts of this animal, and we found bits of undigested plants that had still been burned. So we figured out its last meal was going through a forest fire and just picking up anything that was still floating around.
That's hardcore.
And
Gotta
it's
eat
insane,
while I
right?
die. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's always more questions to be answered. A lot of them are, what did they actually look like? How do they actually sound? Could they run as fast as we think they run with our models? And these are questions that the answer is less important than the pursuit of the answer.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Like they can continue. Like for instance, right now, we started this conversation with how we know so many dinosaurs, and as we were kids, there were like 15 dinosaurs you needed to know. That's it, right?
They're all on my placemat.
Yeah. Any idea how many dinosaurs we've discovered in 2024 alone?
Oh,
In this year.
This year, we
Okay.
have found not counting ichthyotitan because marine reptile.
I mean,
right.
yeah, I mean, it
It's gonna
can't be that
surprise us.
many.
Is it going to surprise us? Should I go 50? I'll go 50.
50? How are you going to find 50?
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm going a baker's dozen.
Okay.
13.
You're closer. 28 new dinosaurs.
I don't know. I
have
feel
been
like 28
discovered.
feels very close to 50.
I mean, that's insane that we
I feel like you're
discovered
coming toward
28 new dinosaurs just this year.
Just this year alone. And then from all over the world. I picked a few of them that had some of the best names, though, because as you find new things, you got to give it a cool name. Like we called this one the ichthyotitan because of the giant fish lizard. But there's other really cool ones that I like.
like the sexy red hippopotamus.
There's Tiamat. Tiamat, which is named after a Mesopotamian serpent mother goddess.
Ooh.
And this is found in Brazil. It's a titanosaur, so it's a huge, long-necked dinosaur. This thing would have been massive. The fossils we found were mostly a bunch of the caudal vertebrae, which means the bones of the tail, making this the oldest Brazilian butt lift in the fossil record.
You got me.
Oh, I got a dinosaur joke.
No, not like that. Dinosaur.
I was going to eat a lot of puss.
That's the only way you can go.
I'm sorry. We have to cut.
No, it's all good.
You're
It's all
good.
good.
You're right.
Sorry, Jimmy.
It's lick a lot of them.
Oh, sorry.
The eat a lot of them.
Yeah.
Doesn't even make any sense.
There's another one that was recently discovered I think is really kind of cool. It's Loki ceratops.
Is that because of Thor?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
because of Loki. So it's a ceratopsian, so it's kind of like a triceratops. It's got 2 horns on its head instead of 3.
There you go.
And the horns kind of curve up and out like Loki's horns from Marvel.
Love it.
And so they said, we're going to call this the Loki ceratops. And all the paleo art for it was like in green with gold and things like that.
That's
so
cool.
They were leaning into it, yeah.
That's cool.
So, Jimmy, where can people find your podcast first, and then
August 24th, aren't you at the Science Center for Fossil Hunters?
Yes. So I'm going to be doing a presentation with the Florida Fossil Hunters. It's another organization near and dear to my heart. You want to go out and find some great fossils. The Florida Fossil Hunters are going to help you have a great time. I'm going to be talking more about ichthyotitan. I'm going to have some of the fossils there you can actually see and experience. And that will be at the Science Center on August 24th. But you can always find me. And so our organization, it's a mobile dinosaur museum. So we bring real and replica fossils out to communities. And we love your support and kind of reach out to us. You can check us out at dwaba.org. That's DWABA, which is short for Dinosaurs Will Always Be Awesome.
Oh, I mean,
You're the best, man.
Jimmy, we love having you
Your
on the show.
energy is just like, it's like amazing. I love it.
I wish
You fire me up about fossils.
me or my sons had a shred of the passion you have towards anything. I'm jealous of that. I'm like, oh God, look how much he likes dinosaurs. I don't like nothing that much. Nothing. Can't even
Look,
get
he even keeps some of his keepsakes to remind him of the things he loves.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
before we go, I brought you guys some dinosaurs of your very own
You
to put
always
together.
bring us toys.
I bring you
you're
things.
so kind. Thank you, buddy. Oh man, you're too
So
sweet to us.
have some
Thank
fun
you
with
so
that.
much. Oh yeah.
They're very cool, and
I'm all
the
about
models
that.
that come out of these are way
Thank
better
you.
and way more accurate than they deserve to be.
You're very
So-
kind.
Oh, I can tell by the plastic. This one was found in China.
This is a consumer octopus.
Fantastic.
All right, we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you, man. That was so good. Are we launching it now?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
guys, we'll be back. Or we probably won't, right?
Yeah, we won't.